My name is Jeremy Silkin. I've been a police officer for over 17 years. So I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, primarily raised by a single mother. My brother and I, we were always playing sports, always very active, but we lived in significant poverty. It wasn't uncommon to go without electricity or heat, living in subsidized housing, boyfriends coming in and out, watching our mom get arrested in front of us more than enough times for that to leave an indelible mark. Most of our Christmas presents, a lot of them coming from churches. At some point, the conditions just became too much for my brother and I. And when I was 16, we moved to Tennessee and started living with my father and his new family. And poverty was easier. My dad definitely struggles with some anger issues. But at some point I decided, I remember an early formative memory with living with my mother when we needed money. We're tired of doing homework by candlelight. So my mother took my brother and I to various Krogers and food towns and with a little Folgers coffee can and, said, money for the hockey team. We're not on a hockey team at this point. And she wanted us to stand outside of these stores and panhandle. And I was probably 12 years old, maybe 11 at the time. I just looked at her like, I can't. No, I can't do that. I may be a little boy, but I'm a man. I'm not gonna ever ask another man or any other person for any type of help. And she started saying a lot of rough things to me, but I was at the point where I'd rather get spanked, disciplined, or go hungry than have to do that. Like there are limits, I think, to how much pride you're willing to eat. So pretty much from that point on, I was like, I'm never gonna ask for anybody for anything. If I can't handle it myself, I'll just go without. That is more than acceptable. Now sitting here thinking about that, I also recognize that also to be a moment when, we kind of grew up going to church here and there. My uncle was a pastor in the Lutheran church. And right around that same time is when I started having these high order thinking conversations with myself basically at night on free will and predestination. And I remember laying in bed one night in a thunderstorm. I was standing on the precipice of atheism, and I was like, this is unsettling, this is unnerving, this is uneasy. It doesn't seem that I can't define a sense of purpose in this life. It doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason. There's hardship without cause, and I can't really define why is this happening? I remember trying to time out the lightning, and I was like, God, finally, hey, listen, I need a sign. And giving him opportunity after opportunity to crack the lightning. And the timing never matched up with the request. Really, from 14 up until 5 years ago, I was not a Christian by any means. I thought I was atheist for probably 25 of those years. I also recognized that if I worked hard enough, there was a little bit of validation in the sense that I could hear those 3 magic words, not I love you, good job, Jeremy. And coaches became a very important relationship for me because I recognize now that was definitely filling a father-sized hole. Yeah, but in retrospect, also there's definitely a God-sized hole. So I sought my validation in sports. It was gonna hard to be the cool guy at school when you have 2 outfits for the week, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday outfit and a Tuesday, Thursday. It was gonna be, challenging to be the kid on the wrong side of the track, and then trying to figure out which circles you're going to blend with. And there wasn't as much structure. I know, I hate to speak ill of my parents. I mean, I think that in their way, they loved me. But, they're human beings too, and they have their struggles and sacrifices, and they still struggle with a lot of things. And there's reasons. I've gone 6 years without speaking to my father, and didn't even know that I had applied with San Diego PD. His first notification was when the backgrounds detective called him. So, and if I call my mom after 4 p.m., I can't understand what she's saying. I got my validation from sports, and I got my sense of acceptance. So I always played a sport. And from, I think, 14 on, I always had a job so that I could buy some new cleats, so that I could pay for the sports physical. I graduated in 2001. 9/11 happens. I went to boot camp like a month and a half later. I ended up doing my swearing-in ceremony, and at that point in my life, it made complete sense. I will say this: I never feel more alive than when you're closer to death, kind of things. And I learned that pretty early on with just risk-seeking behavior. And I wanted to continue that. November 2001, went off to boot camp. At that time, the pararescue pipeline was something that I thought would be very rewarding, fulfilling, something I'd be good at. I wanted to get involved in emergency medicine and hopefully save lives. But, out of the 1,000 or so people that take the physical, the mental, the background, then they have to do a tryout, and they have to score high on all the PT scores, push-up, pull-ups, running, swimming. Of the 1,000 or so that try to get in, only 82 of us were granted admission into the course, and that's the pararescue indoctrination course. Of those 82, over the 10-week period, only 9 of us didn't say the words "I quit." So, of those 82, trust me, I wanted to quit every day. I'd love to tell you, but nobody likes drowning. The thing that motivated me was fear. I recognize fear's been the most powerful motivator in my life, and I thought it was a good thing. What got me through the pararescue indoctrination course was fear of failure. So I attended the Army's Airborne Parachutist course, Special Forces Underwater Operations Combat Diver Qualification course, so Combat Dive Scuba School down in Key West, Halo, or Military Free Fall School out in Yuma, and Wind Tunnel in Bragg, which was a lot, it was fun, but I was honestly a little disappointed. It wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Fast forward, I get reclassified into a new mission specialty, 2001 to 2005. But definitely when I got out, I told myself I'm gonna structure, discipline, orders. I'm gonna take a break from that. I'm gonna live a more hedonistic lifestyle. And so I said, what would be some fun jobs that I could do? Head back to Knoxville, and one night I'm like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go to college? Am I gonna do that, use the GI Bill? And I was like, I'm not that disciplined anymore. I don't want to be disciplined anymore. The movie Cocktail came on television, and I was like, there's a young single man living his best life, making money. I'll put in for that. Next day I get hired to go bartend at a nightclub. I was actually working 3 jobs at once. Personal training in the morning, lifeguarding in the afternoons, bartending at night. And then that was kind of short-lived because, it was like watching an angel walk in. And I said a lot of wild, very honest things in the first 24 hours of meeting Holly. It's amazing she didn't run for the hills. She should have been named Grace. Because she sure showed me so much. Yeah, we ended up getting married in 2007. In that time, in that engagement, she's kind of like, what do you really want to do with your life? I don't know. I said, I don't know. I've always wanted to be a police officer. Like, that was my astronaut. It was cops and robbers growing up. I always thought that I'd be good at that. Moving to San Diego to start the academy, that was our honeymoon. We got married in late December. I started the academy early January. Eventually I get on my own, and I'm enjoying it. It's exciting, it's fulfilling, it's rewarding. I'm good at this. And guess what? I'm hearing those 3 words. I'm hearing good job, Jeremy. And I'm like, okay, this is what I was meant for. If an atheist can believe that they're meant for anything. Within 6 months of being a cop, I started having sleeping issues. I'd hear in the morning, hey, are you all right? How was last night? What did you guys get into? And she would explain things to me. She could probably do a better job explaining it than I can. But in the middle of the night, I would creep over to her side of the bed and put her in a rear bent wrist lock or a rear naked choke, a carotid restraint. Or I'd sit upright in the bed with my arms extended, nothing in my hand, but in a shooting position. And I'd be screaming, show me your blanking hands, show me, get on the blanking ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. And my eyes would be open, but I'm not awake. And when I would sleep, I could sleep for 24, 32 hours straight. And when I wouldn't sleep, I could be up 24, 48, 72 hours. I would just be wired. I was so hyper-focused on being successful. Like, hey, this is my career. This is my wife. This is our future that we are basically on the Oregon Trail. And my career is the wagon, and I cannot let that thing break down. Like, it is all dependent on me. And it was right around the same time Costco started selling those mixed pack IPAs. And, 1 became 2, 2 became 3, etc. It felt like it worked until it didn't. The reality is it never worked for a single second. Never made the easier the next day to deal with your problems, your fear of the future, living in the past. But I'm still able to outwork my problems. I'm still getting awards and getting assignments that I don't feel I deserve. This is why I felt like this would have the most impact. I rode with an amazing man for almost 2 years. His name is Brandon Jordan. And he's a very, very shy and humble person, so he'll probably hate his name getting dropped. But his name's Brandon. He's a good dude. No pastor, no priest, no chaplain. Nobody could get me to do anything other than argue with them. And I loved it. I was more than happy to try to make them feel this small and belittle them with my, well, that's a $5 argument, or that's a high order conclusion that you've made, Jeremy. But I rode with some good chaplains though too, but they never cracked the door. The door was still shut. I thought it was bolt locked. So I would have these little conversations because I respected Brandon, but I didn't. It was like, dude, you're so good at so many things. How are you able to believe this fairy tale? Like, what's wrong? What's broken in you? Why? And he always had a sane, logical, biblically backed, usually historically backed, like he pointed. He had a great retort for every single thing that I said. And I remember the one that he said, lean not into thine own understanding, but trust in the Lord with all your heart, and he will make your path straight. I think we all misdefine our own sense of control, but I was self-will run riot, That right there, it undid the top bolt and it let the door crack. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe there is a God. Maybe there's a God. And I started kind of like leaning a little more agnostic, okay, maybe. I had always prayed to the flag, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the military, the badge, the profession, myself, like those were my gods. That's what I was serving. But I put all my investments, mentally, physically, emotionally, time-wise, into these professions that let me down. People let me down. I let myself down. And then I kind of had the realization that, well, to say that there is no God, to say that you know exactly everything there is to know about God, which God, which religion, this, that, and the other, To me, that's just as ignorant as saying, I know there is no God. Wait a minute, in absence of proof, how can you disprove a negative? Like, sorry, wait a minute, okay, so how much of this, maybe I should revisit this tomorrow. All right, next week, next month. I ended up losing a friend to suicide. Same kinds of issues with losing sleep, fear of failure, drinking a little bit more than he should. Sometime later, COVID kicks out. I'm losing my mind, spinning my wheels, wondering how can I bargain, plead, fight. And I looked around, and the person that I saw that was at most ease during this period was my old partner, Brandon. And I'm like, dude, how are you not freaking out? And he says, well, Lord will always provide. The greatest example of a Christian man I have ever met, of a Christian warrior, the heart of a servant, and the greatest example in my life of what a Christian should be, of all the people that I've met. Anybody. Quiet about it. Very just quiet about his faith, but does not shy away from it. I was like, man, there's something to it. You could not force me to be a Christian. And eventually I was ready. And he's like, why don't you come to church with us? What do you got to lose? Come check it out. Where do you go? We go to Skyline. Man, an invite can change a life. Because, yeah, you guys said that. An invite can change a life. And I started listening, and for the first time, the word made sense. Something stirred in me. I've never been I'm still not much of a worship music kind of guy, but every so often, it hits. And yeah, especially in those turbulent times, I find myself like, okay, all right, maybe I am. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm like, yeah. It's so for being like a shy in that kind of way. And then Pastor McGarrity's messaging and the way in which he relays the sermon is something that it sinks in. It comes into my ears in a way that it hasn't. And so I left that first Sunday service here, and we went home, and I dusted off. This is how dumb I am. Can I adjust here real quick? This is how dumb I am. I pulled out, our kids were gifted a children's action Bible. I hear you. All right. So I'm like, you know what? All the these, thous, those that I heard growing up, and stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. Let's see what's in here. So I was like, hey boys, come pop into bed with me. Let's read this. Okay, Genesis. And I'm reading, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I need a comic book version of the Bible for this to start to make sense whatsoever. So we started reading the Bible as a family every night. And pretty much right from the jump, Jason Hensley, somehow I crossed paths with him. And Pastor Hensley's like, yeah, you're a police officer. Hey, you want to do our security team? And I was like, yes. I want to serve. Not a problem. We're good. We started coming more and more and more, coming to Skyline. So I believed in him. Grateful for the things in my life. 42 years of age. I'm learning that I was trusting in God. I trusted that He exists, but I wasn't relying on God. I don't have a faith walk. I have a fake walk. I'm doing the dogmatic, ritualistic things, but there's no relationship. It's a good thing that this church says no perfect people allowed. I should have read that. Eventually, I'm in line waiting to get another shoulder surgery. I get the shoulder surgery, and I come home, and a day or two later, my wife's like, what are you doing? You're on shoulder medicine. You can't drink that. It had been a significant problem, a very significant problem for at least 6 years. I had lost another friend, a former recruit, died due to alcohol-related. Basically, he didn't wake up one morning. I remember trying to help console him with life's issues while I have one of the same issues as he does. I wish that I would have been able to relay that. That's why I'm here right now. I don't want to do this. And I've been praying to God to give me the words to speak. I would rather look like a fool here at Skyline than feel like a bad person for keeping vital information even at my own expense and my own humiliation. I'm so grateful that I sought help with our San Diego Police Department wellness unit. The last 300 days, as of today, oddly enough, today's my 300th day without a drink of alcohol. If you would ask me last year if that was possible, I couldn't make it 3 days of the last 6 years. Now my family is doing so much better. We have so much more peace with the unknown. I recognize hard times are going to happen. I recognize that suffering is inevitable, but nobody's suffered more than Jesus. If it wasn't for all the things that I've been through in my life, I wouldn't have peace in the here and now, and I wouldn't have an eternity with him. I also recognized early on, nobody gets through the Father without me. It's Father's Day. I'm at a major turning point. I said, babe, I think I want to get baptized this Father's Day. She says, you know what? I want to do it with you. And then our kids said, we want to get baptized too. And I said, hold on, you're 10 and 12. I want to make sure that you make this firm decision on your own and that you're of sound mind and body and you have the maturity to understand what you're agreeing to, like what you're saying to everybody else here. So initially, my wife and I got baptized. And 2 minutes later, we walk out and the kids they're just upset. They're so upset. Heidi comes over and she's like, they can get baptized. And I'm like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So she looks at them, she asks them some questions, and they're just like rattling everything off. I'm like, yeah, they got their Sky Zone bucks. You know, they're Sky Zone bucks rich. So they're rattling everything off, and the clearness of their conviction, you know, in some ways, like it put me to shame. Like kids intrinsically, they get it. They understand. And I looked at them and I saw their faces and I knew it. I was like, they're ready. Okay. So the kids go up, they get baptized. Our whole family baptized on Father's Day this year. And my buddy Brandon was there. I've had to since apologize for all the times that I tried to belittle, the times when I was maybe a worldly bad influence with my tone, my language, my ideas and beliefs. And I want to say thank you for inviting me.